Islamism. That is a cancer. That cancer riddles these people to become what they are. They are ideologically driven in the same way that Nazis are ideologically driven. In the same way that pre-1939, a lot of those so-called pro-Nazi Germans originally started out to be good people. They thought they were misled and manipulated by Hitler to believe that, he's our saint, he's freeing the country and all that sort of shit. It's exactly the same playbook, right? It's not racist to really bring down an ideology.
You can hate an ideology without hating everybody in it.
Absolutely.
I always make it a point to say, no, I don't hate every Muslim, but I have the right to hate Islam. I have the right to hate Islam for what it did to my country, for what it does around the world, for what it does to Iranians, for what it does to Israelis, what it did to the Southern Sudanese. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Coptic Cave. I have a very, very, very special guest here with us, with me today. Ali from Oz, bro, the one and only, the foul mouth. My Persian brother from Oz. And look at the shirt he got on, bro. Look at the shirt.
I haven't even said anything yet.
And
need I say no words?
And on today's episode, man, every time Ali lets it rip with his favorite word, I'm taking a drink. So I'm about
What's going on, you mad cunts?
There we go.
If you get offended easily, well, you probably won't be here if you do, because if you already know Mr. Mikhail and you already know myself, then double the trouble, I guess, in that sense.
Yes, sir.
In terms
Yes,
of
sir.
being offensive,
Exactly.
foul mouth sparked.
Exactly. So you're the first Iranian that I've personally known who lives in Australia. I've known Iranians that lived in London, Germany, obviously here, California, West LA, some in Dallas, some in Houston, some in New York, but you're the first one that I personally know from Australia. What is that like, and what is the Iranian community like in Australia?
Great question. No one's actually asked me this. There's not many of us here, right? When we first came to Australia, I was literally 10 months old. This big, yeah? So we were the first here, one of the first at least, because when it came to the influx of immigrants in Australia in the 50s and 60s, you had the Greeks and Italians. In the 80s, post-80s, you had the Lebanese Civil War, you had a lot of Lebanese, particularly the Christian Maronites. And then you had other Middle Easterns and other Asians come in from the 2000s onwards. And then when it came to Iranians, most Iranians didn't come until late 2010s. With us,
Wow.
we came in the 90s, so there wasn't many of us at all whatsoever. So it was quite isolating in the sense that a lot of us had a identity crisis, and even today there's around 80 to 90,000 Iranians in all of Australia. Australia's huge, obviously. Yeah. In New South Wales, where I'm from, which is the main state, there's about 20,000 of us, I believe. Yeah. So there's not many of us, man. Quite isolated community, but it is growing now. Especially with the age of the internet and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so, the Iranian community throughout most of the, at least in the United States, is highly, highly secular. I might have met in my entire life, maybe 5 religious Shia Muslim Iranians. Is that the same sort of immigrant profile of Iranians in Australia?
Definitely. Where do I start with this? Because there's so much to say with regards to Islam and Iranians, right?
Yeah.
And one of the many reasons why we connect so well with Israelis. When it comes to secularism and Islam, what we have to take into account is that, no offense to you since you're Egyptian, Iran is quite literally the oldest country in the world. Not the oldest civilization, they're two different things, right? Obviously, the oldest civilization, some argue it's Sumeria, some argue it's Mesopotamia, or even Egypt or China or whatever. But Iran is the oldest country in the world, with so much history and philosophy and literacy and poetry and everything that you name it. So Islam is a relatively recent phenomena. And when it comes to indigenuity and everything under the sun of religion and morality and civics and everything you could possibly sit down and talk deep about, Iranians already have all that pre-Islam. Women's rights, human rights, the abolishing of slavery, and so many other things. And that's why we have a very soft spot when it comes to secularism and portraying to the world that, look, we are very secular. Not only put aside the our dismay against Islam in and of itself, but the fact that we are very, very secular. We are so grateful for having separation of church and state. So same thing in Australia. You will rarely meet quote unquote religious Iranians. When I say religious, I mean Muslims. And even them, they would happen to be somewhat pro-regime. And even them, I'll tell you right now, they are the biggest hypocrites of all. They are the type of Muslim that they would fast during Ramadan, and then on the same day that they're fasting, once they're done, they'll go out to a club, snort a line, and go to the brothel once they're done. I personally know people who have done that during Ramadan.
That describes most of my friends in my 20s.
Yeah, I grew up around these people, man. Yeah. Actually, what I love about you, man, is like I resonate so much with you and your background because I feel like there's so much there that I understand, and I love the fact that you understand how their mentality works, and that's why you're able to portray their shit fuckery, portray their bullshit and mentality and propaganda rather. I definitely grew up amongst the same sort of people. I wasn't, to say, as radical as you were when it came to like anti-Semitism and stuff, because I wasn't really involved with the whole pro-Palestinian side. But I definitely was by default, just growing around these people. You just identify, oh, yep, Israel equals evil, Zionist equals evil, Palestine equals good, without even thinking about it, without having any education on the topic, nothing whatsoever. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, so like, I didn't meet my first Iranian until I moved to California from Massachusetts. I had a friend in high school, his name is Mehdi, but he was half Iranian, half Mexican. He couldn't speak, and he spoke very little Farsi, right? But he was the first Iranian that I met. And his dad was like the least religious man on earth, the least. And I remember, this is sort of like when I'm developing sort of like my political consciousness as it relates to like the Middle East and stuff. I was working somewhere in the mall. It was actually Victoria's Secret, but I was working at Victoria's Secret. I was like literally putting the panties on the table. And this lady, she asks me about a price, right? Or something. She asked me about something. And I remember she had an accent on her. And I asked her, like, oh, where are you from? And she's like, oh, I'm from Iran. And, and then she asks me what my religion is. Okay? And at the time, like, even though I wasn't like a religious Christian, I just said, oh, I'm Coptic Christian. And she's like, good, Christian better.
Yeah.
And I quickly found out that who Iranians are in real life is not at all how they're portrayed in Western media or in Arab media. So whatever Westerners think of Iranians, Arabs also think of Iranians that way. Like I remember like my Arab friends would be shocked when they found out that like most Iranians hated their government. right? They would be shocked that most Iranians hated Islam, okay, and that they wanted nothing to do with it. And I remember I met this Iranian girl outside of a bar one time, and just sort of like talking about our families, and she's like, "Yeah, my dad's basically an atheist." And I remember, like, these were like shocking statements for me to hear, because the image that's associated with Iran is Ayatollah Khomeini and all this stuff, and it just threw me through a loop. But I was fortunate to have a decent amount of Iranian friends just throughout my adulthood and up until now too. Like, I have a big soft spot in my heart for the Iranian people. I have several books by Iranian authors. I have Shahnameh by Ferdowsi. I have this book called City of Lies. It's just this collection of like stories of Iranians who have to live double lives because they have to hide from the regime. Yeah, major respect to the Iranian community.
Love you, brother. Love you. There's so much to comment on that, man. Especially during my uni years, I've met many, like particularly Shiite Muslims, like from Lebanon or Iraq or whatnot, which are obsessed with Khamenei, ideology and aspiration. Like, that is their whole thing. I'm talking to the point where their fucking phone wallpaper is a picture of Khamenei. And I have like come across so many of these cunts, man. Even in fucking raves, dude.
There we go. First
I've
one.
met. Okay, here we go. I've met fucking Gronks in raves back in the day when I used to go out all the time, right? With a huge fucking Hezbollah on their back, yeah? Like a tattoo. And every time they realize you're Iranian, they come up to you, first thing they say, yeah, Khamenei. And obviously then and there, I wasn't too political back in the day, particularly the past like 3, 4, 5 years, I should say. I've been much more involved. But even back then, it really annoyed me. I just felt like some sort of nerve was tickled every single time I meet these people, and not only their perception of Iranians is Khamenei and Shiism and the entire fuckery that is the Islamic regime, but like, they dismiss everything else. And the moment you mention gender apartheid, women's rights, and everything else under the sun that has to do with being an Iranian, they don't give a flying fuck, right? They don't give a flying fuck. They don't give a shit. And upon many reasons, this is one of the many reasons why I just have such a sense of dismay about them. I mean, you ask a pro-regime Iranian, like a fucking ideological cocksucker, ask them, everything under the sun about Palestine. They'd absolutely say anything, like in terms of cock-riding Palestine. Ask the other side, the Palestinian side, right? Not all of them, but ask the ideological side at the very least. What do you think about Iranians? Do you care about Iran? Do you care about the suffering of Iranians? They don't give a flying fuck.
Yeah, man. And what I hate the most about the sort of like the Arab Muslim attitude towards Iran is that, first off, most Arabs are Sunni Muslims. Okay, so they don't even like Shia in the first place, right? Like, they call Iranian Muslims Majusi, Rawafid, which means refusers in Arabic, because they refused, the first caliph Abu Bakr. But when I always noticed that when Iranians spoke out about, just the absolute brutality of the regime, the reflexive reaction from the Arab Muslims, like, oh, you just want to be like the West. Oh,
you just want to strip down nude. You just want to show your tits.
Yeah. It's always this, like, they attach human rights to everything Western. It's this: if you give a shit about human rights, if you don't want your women, oppressed, if you don't want gays to get hung from cranes, you're a wannabe white person. But like, and
I get that. I get such commentary all the time. You're trying to be a white Aussie. Like
Yeah.
this guy putting on an accent. I've had that sent to me all the time. Like you're trying to put on a fucking Aussie accent. It's like, dude, this is how I talk. Like, leave me alone. Sorry. Yeah.
You grew up in Oz, bro. Like, what the fuck?
It's
Like,
not
I
my
can
fault
only
you talk like a illiterate fuck.
I can only imagine the reactions I would get if I had a Boston accent. Somehow, some way, I didn't develop a Boston accent despite, living in Boston until I was 17. But I think it's
Yeah.
because, like, my parents were Egyptian, and like, I really, the people I spoke to the most were my parents. But there's really this disconnect from decency when it comes to Arab Muslims and their attitude towards the IRGC regime. I remember because there were, you know, two things that made it really difficult for me to support the Palestinian cause, later on before I became Zionist, is it was hard to juxtapose the Palestinian cause, which, let's be honest, it's funded by Qatar and, the Jumhuri Islami, the IRGC, right? It's hard to juxtapose that with my support for Zan Zendegi Azadi. Like, how can I support one cause while this cause is basically actively fighting against it? And remember, like, I mean, you
Yeah.
know this better than me, man. When they overthrew the Shah, they brought in Arab Muslims to suppress the Iranians. Like the anti-regime, the people who were pro-regime that went to the streets to protest. A lot of them were trained by the PLO.
And that wasn't the only time, by the way. Um, Almost every single uprising, and not to mention any other means of suppression, has been, and there's documented evidence for this, has been that they've hired essentially Hezbollah fighters because they don't want to do the dirty work themselves, and that's also the entire purpose of the proxies. The Iranians, I don't like to call them Iranians. They're not Iranians. They're literally anti-Iranian. They hire all the proxies to do the dirty work for them. Particularly during Zan Zendegi Azadi, the Woman Life Freedom Uprising, one of the biggest things that really, really hurt us so much was thousands of Hezbollah fighters, and again, there's documented evidence for this, being fled from Lebanon into Iran to suppress protesters. I'm talking shoot them down and kill them, from women to the age at the age of 16 to whoever else who was out on the streets. And you expect me to support Hezbollah because apparently they're freeing Palestine or some shit like that? You expect me to support such regimes that, again, they don't care about people, they care about ideology. And I must not conflate, and I do this every time because, like, a lot of that side of the spectrum, and I know you get this too, they would call you a racist. In fact, it's got nothing to do with race. It's got everything to do with ideology. It is the ideology of Islamism that is a cancer, that cancer riddles these people to become what they are. They are ideologically driven in the same way that Nazis are ideologically driven, in the same way that pre-1939, a lot of those so-called pro-Nazi Germans originally started out to be good people. They thought they were misled and manipulated by Hitler to believe that, he's our saint, he's freeing the country and all that sort of shit. It's exactly the same playbook, right? It's not racist to really bring down an ideology. It's yeah.
You can hate an ideology without hating everybody in it. Like, I always
Absolutely.
make it a point to say, like, no, I don't hate every Muslim, right? But I have the right to hate Islam. I have the right to hate Islam for what it did to my country, for what it does around the world, for what it does to Iranians, for what it does to Israelis, what it did to the Southern Sudanese. I mean, if you ask me, the two worst ideologies to ever hit mankind was Islam and communism. And sometimes I don't know which one is worse, because I'm like, at least Islam has property rights. But I mean, it's just like it's choosing between fucking, herpes and herpes on your butthole. It's like that's what it's choosing between.
That's actually a tough one, dude. And the fucked up part is with that, you have these two cunts come together as one, right? The red black circle jerk, as I like to call it. They come together, and they may be compatible temporarily in some aspects, but they separate in other aspects. But that doesn't matter in the temporary, in the status quo. What matters is they come together as one. Right now, it's a fucking Pornhub clip essentially at the beginning, but once they're done at the end of it, the red, which are the communists, have a fucking cum bucket all over their face. So, if you know
They
what I mean.
always get their cheeks clapped in the end, bro. They
Yeah.
always get their asses whooped in the end.
But I think they're masochists in that sense, because a lot of them are aware of it, but they don't care. So
Yeah.
they want to be submissive. I don't.
No, fuck that. Fuck that. I'd rather fight back. I mean, just as an example, bro, I remember when Gina Mahsa Amini, when she was killed, right? And that sparked the Zenzendegi protests. All right. And for those who don't know what Zenzendegi means women, life, freedom. Like, I remember the pictures that were coming out, right? And I remember, like, the reaction from the Arab Muslim side. Like, me, like, I supported it from the minute, you know, it launched off. But, like, I remember there was, like, you know, there were women, like, you know, throwing their hijabs off and, you know, setting them on fire. And the Arab Muslim reaction was like, oh, this is a war against Islam. You don't need to protest this way. It's like, motherfucker, you care more about this shitty piece of cloth than you care about the lives of Iranian women. That's how fucked up your morality was, right? And it's one of those moments where I looked at the Arab Muslims like in absolute disgust. And then there was like another moment, and it was in April of 2024. And this is a moment that actually, you know, it was one of those final straws for me supporting the Palestinian cause. April 2024 is when the IRGC launched this retaliatory strikes against Israel. It was their first like missile and drone attack against Israel. It was in a response for that, because I think what Israel did was they hit like some sort of building adjacent, yeah. And so the IRGC launched this retaliatory strike against Israel. And if you remember, countries like Jordan and Saudi Arabia were assisting in shooting down the drones and the missiles, okay? And the Arab Muslim reaction to that was these sellouts, these Zionists, these traitors, you know, Saudi Arabia and Jordan, they're bought by Israel, they're slaves to the Jews and all this. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, do you want Israel to attack these countries? Because if you allow a hostile nation to use your airspace to attack another nation, then the nation being attacked has every right to strike you until you close your airspace and do something to prevent those missiles and drones from hitting their territory. And it's like they just want the fucking world to burn, okay? And I don't know if they have any realistic expectation that this type of, you know, action would free Palestine, whatever the fuck that means now. But like they're willing to burn down the world in the process.
Bro, one thing that I want to touch on, I haven't really talked to anyone about this in terms of dialogue, but I have talked to myself about it, and I've, you know, said it on my socials. It's this entire Islamist mentality, and it goes all the way back to the Prophet Muhammad himself, right? It's being essentially three stages. First and foremost, vulnerability and victimization. Victimize yourself as much as practicably possible. Never take any accountability. It's always someone else's fault. Nothing is your fault ever. Second is good quality propaganda and what I like to call silent jihad, right? Dissemination via non-violence, which is where we're at today in the West. And third and last is, of course, violent jihad. I don't need to explain what that is, but I think we already know. And now the dangerous part is, when they are at stage 2, they are prepared to shapeshift whenever required and go back to stage 1 whenever people call them out for their bullshit, be it verbally or physically, like militarily. So in this case, when Israel is defending itself and beating the shit out of them, they will go back to stage one and make themselves the victim as always. We're oppressed, we're this, we're that. No, you're just a bunch of fucking cavemen cunt. Like, go and read a book and just start brushing your teeth for starters and shave your beard. It's fucking disgusting. Yeah, you know what I'm getting at. But yeah. So those three stages of Islamist mentality, and it just goes back to that every time. It's a simple equation that I've made for myself, and it explains why each and every single time these things happen, you're like, oh, okay, yep, they're victimizing themselves again. They're not going to take accountability. They just never do. It's always Israel's fault. It's always capitalism's fault. It's always the UK's fault. It's always America's fault. You will never, ever, ever stand back and say, yeah, fair enough, I fucked up this time. Ever. And the Prophet Muhammad also did that. Same thing.
Of course, man. I mean, it's... And there's a uniqueness to the Shia Islam, right? Because...
To being a victim. To being a fucking victim.
Like, Labbaik ya Hussein... all that shit. Ya Ali, Ya Fatima, Ya Zainab. And they'd be slapping
One of the best
themselves. They'd be slapping the shit out of themselves, man. Like...
Bro, one of the best thing is about that is like, my name is Amir Ali, right? Or Ali for short. And these cunts get offended. They fucking hate it. You know, they comment on my shit like, oh, your name's Ali. And I'm like, well, firstly, that name existed well before your fucking Neanderthal religion did. But like, but also, out of respect, my parents gave me this name. I love my name. I don't give a fuck. It is Arabic, whatever. I would have chosen a different name, but it is what it is. Half of Iranians have Arabic names. It's unfortunate, but we're going to make a change to that. We're no longer going to submit to this shit. So, yes, they love hitting themselves. And mind you, I've been to these raves, Shiite raves, because that's what they are. They're like, and I'll tell you what, coming from this side now, it is a fucking G-up. Wait, you don't use that term in America, do you? G-up?
No, you're going to...
Oh, okay, G-up is like... It excites you. It hypes you up. It's a hype up.
No, I completely get it, man. Like, I'm like, yo, like, I could, like, you know, like, if it hits the right mood, bro, like, I could see how this shit hypes you up. And, you know, like, I bet you them hijabi girls wearing chador and shit, they'd be looking at the men like, wow, look at Mehdi, wow, look how hard he's slapping the shit out of himself. That's a man, wow.
I will tell you this, a lot of these blokes go to those raves for the pussy. Like, I'm not only saying this, like, factually, but also I've seen it. I've seen different dudes, especially when it comes to Karbala in Iraq, like, and even in Iran, when they go out on the streets with those fat fucking drums, like, oh yeah, I'm doing it for the pussy. They're not doing it for Hussein or Ali. They might be doing it for me because I know they love me, but like, but they're not doing it for any of that shit. Because on the same day, like I said, they're going to go fucking snort some rack and find some prostitute. They don't give a fuck about Islam. They don't give a fuck about it. They're just all a bunch of hypocrites, man. It is so sad.
Yeah, I mean...
Dude, Halloween. Fucking Halloween. Halloween, like, I was out with mates and we went to the theme park for, like, this Halloween theme thing. Not theme park. Yeah, theme park, yeah. Where you have rides and shit. Yeah. And we're all wearing costumes and shit. And, brother, would you believe me the number of hijabis I saw there with costumes? I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? You literally, like, this is shirk. This is the worst sin of all. Like, at the very least, okay, you don't have to drink alcohol and shit, but you are committing shirk, cunt. You are fucking worshipping the worst of devils against Islam. What are you doing here? Sit at home. Like, it's not going to hurt one day for you to sit at home and not fucking worship the devil, you fucks.
That's funny. That is so funny. And you know what's funny is like girls from like southern Lebanon, all right, them Shia chicks from southern Lebanon, right? They got the biggest crush on like Basiji motherfuckers. Like they'll look at a motherfucker in Basiji uniform and they will like fall in love. But then they meet like a real Iranian in the States and their hearts are broken. Like they just can't like they can't fathom that Iranians hate the regime. It really fucks with them.
Well, there's this whole thing now that I've noticed on their side of the propaganda. They like to call us Iranians as like the LA Persians. It's like there's a small community of LA Persians who are, pro-monarchy and whatnot. But in reality, the vast majority of us are like that, like the LA Persians, whatever you want to call them. So frankly, go fuck yourself. And unfortunately, yeah, their propaganda is working, man. You quite literally have their propaganda combined with Qatari propaganda, combined with Chinese propaganda, combined with, I don't know where the fuck this came from, Nazi propaganda. And when I say Chinese, I mean like Marxist propaganda. So Soviet style. And all this is working, man. All this is working. The amount of shit I have seen online that is quite literally ideologically connected with the IRGC, and the most random cunts that I've seen in Australia that don't know shit about politics and geopolitics, they are falling for this shit. And I've called out many of them for it, and they have a go at me. They have a crack at me. They're like, "Oh, you're pro-war, you're pro-genocide, you're pro this, you're pro that." It's like, cunt, I was in this space before you were even fucking born, motherfucker. Yeah.
It's crazy, bro. Like these people who support the IRGC. First off, the IRGC is more responsible for bloodshed than any other group in the Middle East, more than any other state, more than any other group. I mean, in Syria alone, all right, there's a death toll that it's got to be somewhere around 600,000.
Yeah,
And
at least half a mil.
the IRGC enabled a leader that literally used chemical weapons. And I mean, we're talking about a regime that witnessed chemical weapons being used on its own people in the Iran-Iraq war. But there again, there is this disconnect from decency, bro. And I don't know how things are in Australia. Okay, but I always thought Australia was mad chill. Like I didn't expect there to be such a fucking big Islam problem, but I've been
Brought up something
seeing
really
some
good.
shit, brother. I've been seeing some shit. In fact, I'm gonna show you right now. You know that dude Muhammad Hablos, right? Australian Sunni preacher. Oh my
Yeah,
God. All right. I'm gonna do screen share really quick.
cringe. But you brought up something really good that I'd like to touch on there.
Yeah. Can you see my screen? Can you see what I'm displaying?
Yep, I know which clip this is.
Yeah.
I can't hear it though.
So yeah. Oh. Oh wait. Give me 1 second. Yeah. So you know the guy who rapes and has adultery and is a murderer. Worse than the guy who doesn't pray though.
Or listen to music. If you
Yeah.
listen to
That's
music,
that's why they
you're
had
worse than all of
Nasheed.
those.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Dude, okay. You touched on something really important that, again, I haven't talked with anyone, and it's really, really, really needs to be talked about more. Australia has always been considered globally. Dude, Australia, I've traveled a lot, yeah, around the world. Wherever you travel, Australians are loved. We truly are the lucky
100%.
nation. Bro, unfortunately, Americans don't have the greatest reputation.
Yeah.
But Aussies are fucking loved everywhere. Needless to say, our accent, yeah? So we've always been labeled as the lucky country, and we really have been, man. It's a relatively new country still, even compared to the States. So everything about this nation, up until the past 25 years or so, has been phenomenal. I have lived the best life in Australia. I am forever grateful for my parents moving here, and we were quite well off in Iran, but we moved simply because, you know, me and my siblings can have a great life here, and we have. I've had the best life here. I think one of the biggest problems was that we allowed our ego as the nation of Australia to sort of make ourselves so complacent, like we're going to be well off, we're always going to be better, right? And because we're such an isolated island, we were never, we were very naive about the consequences of geopolitics and globalism in this day and age, especially with the rise in internet and ideological recruitment. However, I'm afraid the past 20 years specifically, the Overton window has shifted radically, such that we are now allowing such ideological recruitment and ideological propaganda to be spread rapidly. And I never, ever, I'm 31 years old, never in my entire life living in Australia, right? I'm talking sunburnt country. I've lived a very Australian life, right? I'm talking wildlife, bush, outback, that kind of shit. Never in my entire life did I envisage seeing fucking photos of Khomeini, Taliban flags, Al-Qaeda flags, Hamas flags, and such ideological recruitment happening in fucking Sydney, bro. I never, ever thought it will happen, but here we are. This is why Iranians have such a fear of this happening, because we saw the same playbook in 1979, pre-1979. We were naive. We thought we were better to assume that a bunch of fucking pedophile cavemen, Neanderthals, would come and take over the country and take us back to the 7th century. And we were wrong. And I'm afraid here in Australia, the same people who are so naive to believe that, we're trying to tell them, and they label us as Islamophobes, fearmongers, racists, bigots, and all these other fucking labels under the sun. So it's really scary stuff, bro. Australia's not away from the world. As much as we want to tell ourselves we are away from Europe, we're away from the States and whatnot, but we're not. We're not. In many ways, we're ahead. We're fucking ahead in anti-Semitism. We're ahead in anti-infidelism, if that even is a term. These people are ready to rock and roll. And when I say rock and roll, I mean, yeah, it's scary stuff, bro. And actually, another thing that I wanted to touch on with you, I've briefly asked you this, and I'm not a Christian, so I want to ask you, I don't know where the fuck this came from. I knew about Islamism and Marxism. They were always there. I know it back to front, especially as an Iranian. I knew that they will come together with their propaganda game and try to take over and all that sort of stuff. I never ever saw this coming. This whole trend of a combination of Nazism with this weird sort of cultish crusader mindset of Roman Catholicism. Where the fuck did that come from? And why is it here today? Do you have an answer for that?
I have no idea, man, because I was never a strong practicing Christian in my entire life. I'll be honest, man. I went to Catholic school Monday through Friday, and then on Sunday I was going to a Coptic Orthodox church. My dad whooped my ass in the middle of a church bathroom because I was a deacon, and they made my ass wake up at fucking 5 a.m. to go to church. The nearest Coptic Orthodox church was like an hour and 15 minutes away, right? So my parents tricked me into becoming a deacon. They said I would get the new Wayne Gretzky game for Nintendo 64. I never got that shit, by the way. But they made me become a deacon. So I'm standing on my fucking feet at 7 a.m. for a 2-hour long mass, right? And I remember one time I went to the bathroom because I was so damn tired. I just wanted to sit down, bro. And I just remember I saw this, the toilet paper, the roll of toilet paper was so nice and full. It looked like a pillow. So I leaned my head on it and I just fell asleep. My dad kicked down the door and started beating the shit out of me in the middle of a church bathroom. So I despise, like, I really, you know, I know people are going to see this, especially the Christians are not going to be happy with what I'm saying, but I despise Christianity from an early age. But that's because that's what I associated with it, right? But growing up for me in the States, all right, like growing up in the States, all I knew was that most most Christians supported Israel, whether they were Protestant or Roman Catholic, especially, you know, shortly after 9/11. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't really know anything different. And if you were, you know, nominally Christian and you didn't support Israel, it was because you were probably, you know, a Democrat or a liberal. You weren't religious in the first place.
But even the
And
Democrats were like ardent Israel supporters. That was just a given
up
for
until
some
like
degree.
the early 2000s, up until like
Yeah.
especially, I mean, definitely the establishment politicians, but if you ask more on like a local level, the opinions tended to vary. But I think what happens now is that we've reached a place in society in general, especially in the West, where people are um, disenchanted with their institutions. So when you cannot trust your institutions, when you feel like you can't trust your government, that those are the ripe conditions to believe conspiracy theories, lies, and just bullshit information. So you have these fucking weird, young, you know, Nick Fuentes type Christians who are just little fucking incels who have not seen a woman's anatomy since birth. They got these little pedophile mustaches, all right? And they just want to blame all their problems
Hey.
on the Jews, bro. Nah, you got a regal mustache, bro. You look like, you know, like an early 1900s Iranian soldier. I
Jeez,
seen
bro,
the
with a
pictures.
Jewish nose.
Yeah, no. You look like Mohammed Reza Shah Pahlavi's father with the mustache.
Rah. Don't put me on that caliber, but thanks, man.
You know, but like, it is a crisis of trust. Most people in the States, man, they don't trust their institutions. And don't get me wrong, bro. There's a lot of reason to not trust these institutions. They've done their people dirty. But like, you're telling me the alternative to that is to support Muslims? What?
Well, they like to distinguish themselves. When I say specifically the Roman Catholics, like they want this, they've bred this sort of crusader mindset. And the reason why I mentioned this, by the way, it's really ampered in Australia right now. Because since you mentioned Australia, I've been seeing this rise in trend. I'm like, where the hell did this come from? They like to distinguish themselves from the Muslims and say that not the Jews, not the Muslims, we are the righteous ones. And then they bring in like a sprinkle, a hint of Nazism, because, you know, the whole, the Austrian painter was right. You see it everywhere, man. I'm sure you've seen
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's this scary fucking trend that I'm seeing everywhere. And I think you're absolutely right regarding a distrust in the institutions and whatnot, particularly post COVID. But it's scary. It's scary. That's what leads to radicalism. That's exactly what leads to radicalism, and it's not the right way. A lot of these people who initially started off as like genuine concerns about, you know, Australian a loss in Australian culture, a lack of integration from both immigrants and also people who grew up in Australia, Australian citizens their whole life, like individuals that you just showed, like many of these like Islamists grew up in Australia their whole life. They didn't live in Muslim countries. And that's the fucked up part, because they are ideologically driven. That's the more dangerous part. Many migrants come to Australia more hardworking, more secular, more atheistic than any fucking Islamist would who has grown up in Australia. And as a result, you have this symptom of crazy crusader, like, yeah, we need to take everyone down and take dominion again and take hold of Jerusalem again, and all this like fucking weird, just culty mentality. And I didn't see that coming. That's the main point, bro. I didn't see it coming at all. I knew about Marxism. I knew about Soviet-style ideological subversion. I knew about Islamism. It always existed, the Muslim Brotherhood network. I had no fucking clue about this Roman Catholicism sort of mindset infiltrating the West all of a sudden. I really didn't.
Yeah, that one threw me through a loop, and it's made worse with people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. I mean, these, and you know what, the worst thing about them is they know they're full of shit. Out of those three people, I think Nick Fuentes might actually believe in the stuff that he preaches. But Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens are grifters. Like, you can't convince me that they believe in the shit they say. All right?
I agree.
And I do notice that there's this sort of apologetics for Islam right now, including amongst some of those who you would define as sort of like these, you know, neo-crusaders, for instance, right? Like one of these motherfuckers, Clyde, with the pedophile mustache. You've seen him.
Yep.
You know,
he's one of
he
them.
talks about like, oh, well, when I was in a Muslim country, they all treated me really nice. They were really respectful. Motherfucker, they burned down Coptic churches in Egypt. They are butchering Christians in Syria. I mean, and like, to be honest, if you're Christian in these countries, you got it a lot better than if you're Druze or Alawite. Because according to like Sunni jurists, like Ibn Kathir, their repentance is not even accepted. Like, they are to be killed. Okay, and so I have this one dumb cocksucker, you know, comment on my shit today, talking about like, oh, well, it's Western colonialism and it's this and it's that. I was like, motherfucker, Ibn Kathir lived over 1,000 years ago when there was no USA, there was no Israel, there was no UK. All right, like, you can, like, I'm not saying that the West hasn't made a mistake in the Middle East. That's obviously not the case. But this deflection to, oh, it's this West. No, motherfucker, it's Islam.
Yeah.
You can't tell me it's not Islam. Because if it's Western colonialism, tell me, why don't religious minorities in Muslim countries react the same way? How come I've never seen a Maronite Catholic, you know, do a suicide attack in the UK? How come I've never seen a Coptic person, you know, blow themselves up at an Ariana Grande concert? Why is it that the vast majority of these fucking grooming gangs in the UK are literally Pakistani Muslims? Tell me.
Well, two things to mention. The first one is that I will always ask this question. They will always say, that's not the good, peaceful Islam. It is Muslims who ruin the reputation of Islam. So I ask, and no one has answered me this question yet, which one is the good, peaceful Islam? Of the 1400 years that it has existed, which one is it? Is it the one that Muhammad represented? Because that's not going to be a great source for you. So which one is it? Literally. Of 1400, you've got 1400 years to choose from. At least with socialism, they don't have much time. They have a much sort of shorter window frame to, because you ask them, you know, where has socialism worked? Where has Marxism worked? They have a shorter time frame, so they're a little bit more buckled. But with Islam, you got 1400 years to choose from, cunt. Tell me which one is the good one, the good, peaceful one. And other than that, man, shit, I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, essentially, that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. It is ideologically driven. This is what I was going to mention. They say this all the time. It is a line that I have seen and heard everywhere, and I know you have too. It is all for them. It's this concept of Western imperialism, Western capitalism has brought upon destruction from Islamic societies. It is by far, I would argue, the most racist, disingenuous thing you could possibly say, because by saying that, you are quite literally, the Western liberal, you are dismissing 1400 years of history that the West, this whole concept of West, America, American slavery, transatlantic slavery, none of this shit existed well before that. So you were dismissing all of that, and you were quite literally labeling the entire Middle East and North Africa with Islam. That is the most racist thing, actually, which is a paradox for them because they're supposed to be the non-racist ones, but they're the most racist ones, hiding behind this morally narcissistic fucking barrier. And it's disgusting, man. It is disgusting. They are dismissing 1400 years of colonization, of rape, of slavery, of pillaging, and everything else under the sun that Islam has done to all of our indigenous societies. Because I know that they love that word, indigenous. So take that and allow us to tell you about our indigenuity and go fuck yourselves with that.
Listen, man, you brought up something like really, really important because we see what these motherfuckers do in America, in Canada, in Australia. They say it openly too, like, we're trying to collapse the West, and they'll say things like, oh, USA was born in sin, Australia was born in sin. Like, in America, Muslims have no problem shitting all over the founding fathers. And I'm not going to sit here and defend everything the founding fathers did. But, dude, for you to be Muslim and you think that Muhammad is the most perfect example humanity has to offer, and you're going to shit on the founding listen, Muhammad was a pedophile. Muhammad was a slave owner. And Muhammad was a fucking sex trafficker. Okay? If Muhammad was alive today, he'd be given the death penalty in any Western country. He wouldn't survive in the West. He wouldn't even survive in most Muslim countries right now because they're not applying his version of Sharia law. I mean, and this is something that I really get mad at liberals and leftists about, is they are moral cowards when it comes to having tough talks with their Muslim friends about who Muhammad was and what Islam really is about. They are afraid to have the talks about why is it that the worst countries in the world for women are Muslim countries? Why is it that the worst countries for gays are Muslim countries? Shit.
Apparently that doesn't represent Islam.
Yeah, apparently not.
Apparently Muhammad was a trans activist, so he was an LGBT activist, so that's according to the logic.
I saw one blog post to state that Muhammad was a feminist.
Yeah, I've seen that before. Muhammad was the first feminist. Oh no, I think it was Khadija was the first feminist or some shit. Well, she was the first sugar mummy in Islam, arguably. So another point to add, to differentiate Muhammad from the two other Abrahamic prophets, who is the only prophet who cooperated and rather participated in wars, not to defend himself, but to invade and forcefully convert others to Islam. Very peaceful, so peaceful. I love it. Sounds a lot like a ayahuasca meditation retreat where you go and sit in a circle and you have those like, drink cacao and like have somewhat of a sharing circle. Sounds really, really beautiful and peaceful. Love it. You dumb fucks.
We're talking about a guy who killed a Jewish woman's husband and then raped her on the same day.
Very peaceful.
This is the best that humanity has to offer, if you ask Muslims. And you have these bullshit Muslims that will try to pretend like Aisha was not 9 years old when Muhammad had sex with her. They'll try to do these mental gymnastics. Well, she was at this battle, so there's no way she couldn't have been. Motherfucker, narrated by Aisha herself in the hadiths. She was 9 years old. She was playing with dolls.
Yeah. Well, here's the difficult part. Not difficult, but it's a bit more sophisticated. Here's where Sunnis and Shiites would differ from one another. Mm-hmm. The Shiites would play this mental gymnastics where they sort of dismiss the hadiths to say that, yeah, we're different to the Sunnis in this sense. We are only the Quran. Well, but then they would conveniently go ahead and quote the hadiths when it fits their narrative, because I've seen it happen all the time, right? And even if you were to entirely dismiss the hadiths, just take the Quran, just the Quran itself. Well, it completely allows that. For a 424 example, you're allowed to invade a particular tribe or colony or whatever, and take the women as sex captives. No problem. Yeah. No dramas at all. Sounds very peaceful, very feministic. Yeah.
I mean, they can't possibly. That's the thing is too. Is like you meet these Muslims sometimes that say like, oh well, I don't believe in hadiths. Okay, so I guess you don't pray because the way you pray is literally in the hadiths. I guess you don't fast Ramadan because it teaches you how to fast in the hadiths. Like, and to be honest, there is a part of me that is sort of sympathetic with the picking and choosing, right?
Yeah.
Because as someone who observes Christians and Jews, I know that they pick and choose the parts of their religion that allow them to live a practical life. And I would much rather you do that and live a more secular life, a more peaceful life, than because the Sunnah is fucking crazy. Like, I'd much rather you do that. But to act as if the Quran is much better, it is a mental gymnastic in and of itself. And I'm not saying that the Old Testament doesn't have some crazy shit in it. I know it does, right? But when we're talking about scale, which people are taking their scripture the most literally? It's not the Christians.
I like to say that. Yeah, I like to say that. Compared to the other two, Islam is today in its maturing phase. The other two are grown-up adults, okay? And Islam is in its maturing phase. It's still a toddler. It's still in that phase of never taking any accountability, like a toddler, always being a victim, like a toddler. But when it prepares, when it can, it will prepare. It's prepared to conflict some sort of violence or get its way and take advantage, like a toddler. The other two have grown up. They're much more reasonable. They use logic, fact, and reason. Hence the Enlightenment, hence the Reform, hence the secularism, and all these other things. You take the good parts of Christianity. Even the New Testament justifies slavery, does it not? But they dismiss that because they're fucking adults. But tell a Muslim, even a quote-unquote moderate Muslim, hey bro, what do you think about rejecting Surah X, Y, and Z and taking out of the Quran? No, it can't be changed. It can't be changed. It's a fucking problem. It's a fucking problem. There's nothing racist about that.
They'll always point to some, bullshit talking point like, oh, well, did you know the age of consent in this state at around this time was, 12? Like, dude, nobody is taking the governor or fucking presidents of these countries as religious figures.
Yeah.
Like, even the most, die-hard, I love the founding fathers type motherfucker isn't, deifying these people. Nobody has called them a prophet. Okay, the one motherfucker in this country that tried to be a prophet got chased out of his own state. Joseph Smith, the leader for the Mormons.
Yeah. I just remember South Park every time.
Oh my god. I love that episode. I love that. The lady that questioned him on his bullshit. Smart.
Oh, I fucking love it. Yeah.
Well, hey, bro, we gotta wrap it up. I just want to thank you, man, so much for coming on, bro. This was I had a fucking great time, bro. I gotta have you on again. Again very soon.
Absolutely, bro. There's so much to discuss. Yeah, sorry.
Absolutely. And there is this thing that I'm trying to do in the future where I bring on a guest as a co-host, and you would be a fucking riot. You'd be a fucking riot to have on as a co-host. I could have this, I kind of want to do an Iranian session between, me, you, and Naveed. That shit would be hilarious. That shit would be hilarious.
He's a fucking funny cunt, man. If you listen to this, he's a fucking funny cunt. I love it, bro.
I love Naveed.
he's the best personification of what a Gen Z Iranian is.
Yeah.
Doesn't give a fuck, and smart, well-educated, and just an absolute all-right mad cunt. To put it straight, yeah.
Love the kid. I kind of look at him as like a little brother sometimes, you know. I love that kid. Anyway, we are signing off once again. Ali, thank you so much for being here. Gorbonet, bro, my guy. I appreciate you so much. And
thank you.
Yeah, that was an episode for the books, man. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little tipsy. I'm a fucking lightweight. So, good night, everybody.